Coming up on today's Alabama Football Report, some college football playoff rankings, discussions, outcomes, etc. Chris Braswell getting some love, I'd say well-earned love as well, and Senior Day conversation for the Crimson Tide. Before we get going, will Alabama get into the college football playoff? Producer Chris is getting anxious that even if they beat Georgia, they're going to get left out. I think if they win, and if they win out, they are in. What do you guys think? Will Bama get into the college football playoff? Y for yes, N for no. Let's discuss more on the college football playoff from Michael Casagrande here. Going back to look at the current CFP situation. This season is unique for a few reasons. Above all, nobody is at the top is losing right now. You have 5 unbeaten teams from 4 conferences with 3 one-loss teams who typically be right there in the top 4 to 5 teams. Now look, the CFP committee told us what they think by putting Texas, and I would still say incorrectly, Oregon over Alabama. And we also know this part too. It's just like whose line is it anyway? The points don't matter, they're made up, and no one knows what the rules actually are. The committee has shown before they will change their decision on a fly. There is no actual criteria. The criteria can change every week. There are some guidelines, but it can ebb and flow. I still believe if Alabama wins out, they take down a crappy Chattanooga team, the freebie game, right? They take down Auburn in the Iron Bowl, and they beat Georgia in the SEC championship game. I think that gets you in. Now, I think it stinks because there is at least one particular scenario that I think, okay, maybe they actually could kind of get the short end of the stick and get left out and be left at home. But I do think that scenario is the less likely version that producer Chris is very much anxious about. Basically, I believe the weird scenario you don't get in is FSU, Washington, Texas, and one of Ole Miss, Michigan all win out. Or OSU, Michigan all went out. And then it's 3 undefeateds, 2 one-loss teams, and you lost the head-to-head to the one-loss team. Which, at that point, I don't think you should get in. Because I believe the games have to matter. Otherwise, why are we playing them? Good news is, I don't think that happens. The controversial scenario looks like this. And this actually is very possible it could go down like this. I think more likely than the other one. OSU, Michigan, go undefeated. One of them went out, maybe it's just for easiness. It's OSU and there's no drama with the science-stealing scandal, right? FSU takes care of business against the bad ACC. They went out. Oregon knocks off Washington in the Pac-12 championship game to avenge their lone loss of the season. Texas wins the Big 12 championship, and Alabama wins the SEC championship. Who do you leave out? Someone is going to get screwed. Now, my suspicion is that by that point, Georgia would be 2. The Big 10 champion is number 1. Georgia's 2. I think they would screw Oregon. I think Oregon, the Pac-12's dying. Nobody cares anymore. Texas, FSU, Big 10 champion, and Bama get in. How can you leave out the SEC champion? That's not how the committee in college football love to do things. And shouldn't strength of schedule matter? I do think, by the way, that the committee can fix this issue by putting Alabama ahead of Oregon where they belong currently. Oregon should not be ahead of Alabama right now. Now, maybe there's some Bama fatigue or whatever, but I think that's a very lame excuse. And there's also this has producer Chris worried too. Could the loser of the game get in? What if Michigan wins by 1? Last-second walk-off field goal. And maybe you're in a scenario where Washington wins and Texas loses, and then who do you put in or whatever. I don't think that happens. I think the reason why there were 2 last year is because there was no other one-loss champions. If there are multiple one-loss champions, they won't put in a one-loss non-champion. Of your one-loss teams that are in the best shape to win right now, who is the best one-loss team? It'll be today's pinned comment, by the way. O for Oregon, T for Texas, A for Alabama. You can even rank them if you want to. I'm going TAO myself. Let me hear from you in the comments section. I do think who you play matters. And then that will ebb and flow over the course of the season. That's the whole point of why we play the games. But Oregon's schedule has not been that impressive to me. Like Portland State, Texas Tech, Hawaii, Colorado, Stanford, Washington, they lost. Their best win is over Utah, who, by the way, I think you are going to see slide to maybe 20 in the rankings this week. We'll see what happens tonight. USC is a non-ranked opponent. Arizona State's not good. If they can beat Oregon State, great. Oregon State's going to be a fringe top 10 team when they play, if not an actual top 10 team. That'd be a nice win for them. Bama's going to have more ranked wins than Oregon will. Like we are already at that point with a pretty safe margin. I think Bama's the better football team. I would like to see the committee make that change at some point. Put Bama ahead of Oregon. I don't know if it's going to, but I think that they could fix their issues by simply doing this in the way that I think they should have done it already, or at least our perceived issues of what they have. Maybe they don't feel the same way. Today's show was made possible by Prize Picks, the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. It's you against the numbers. Instead of battling thousands of other players, the pros, the sharks, you pick more than or less than on 2 to 6 player stat projections, and you watch the winnings roll in. They have a vast selection of sports and stat types offered that you can't find anywhere else, and their reboot policy. If a player goes down in the first half, they do not return, good news. Those players are rebooted, and your picks stay in play. It's the only platform that offers injury insurance. My NFL picks this week. Eventually, the college ones come out later in the week because there are no injury reports. C.J. Stroud, more than passing yards. That seems really low against the not great Cardinals defense. Sam Howell, I love it because the Giants secondary is doo-doo. And CeeDee Lamb gets fed. So give me more receiving yards for him. Go to prizepicks.com/CLNS and use code CLNS for a first deposit match up to $100. Link will be in the comments and the description of today's show. Again, it's prizepicks.com/CLNS and use code CLNS for a first deposit match up to $100. Let's show some love to Chris Braswell like Nick Saban has been. We were waiting for the breakout. I thought it was going to come last year. Finally arrived this season. He has become one of Bama's best defensive players and a key part of a defense. Looks way better under Kevin Steele. By the way, producer Chris, I've heard some whispers out of Ole Miss if Lane Kiffin does leave that there are at least some down there who want to have Pete Golding as the head coach, which he can recruit, but anyway, here's what Nick Saban said on Chris Braswell. Quote, Bras is a really good competitor, hard worker, works really hard in practice to get it right. I think a lot of guys play outside backer for us. When they come in here, they don't have a lot of background and experience standing up and playing. A lot of them play with their hand in the dirt in high school. So the whole idea of standing up and playing, dropping some, how do you rush off the edge when you're standing up rather than a three-point stance? I would say that Brass has certainly improved physically because of how committed he is to being a good player. But I think from a mental standpoint, that's where he really has a much better understanding of all the things you need to do to play that position. I think Brass was a decent answer for who was your defensive MVP of the year. A lot of routes you go. Terrion Arnold, I still think Dallas Turner's in there. Insert trench run block or run stopper up front. Caleb Downs. Deontay Lawson, if he hadn't missed 2 games, I think would be a great pick as well. A lot of good options there. Who is your defensive player of the year? Over the course of his collegiate career, maybe he didn't play at all in 2020. He is a senior now, though. 2.5 sacks in 2022. Nice little step forward. Big jump this year. 7 sacks, 9 TFLs. That's the type of growth you want to have. And there's 2 games left. And he might just be able to get to 10 if we include SEC championship and bowl game. Here's what Braswell said on his own growth. Everyone leads different. Not everybody wants to be the guy that's yelling and everything. I'm more of a quiet leader. I show by my actions, so I do a lot of positive things. Not doing anything negative with the team or anything like that or getting in any trouble. I go out there and I show the guys what I do, and they can just look at me as a role model. But I do talk sometimes. I'm not silent like a robot or anything. I do like the silent leader type. I think you want to have some mix and matching, but I do think the lead by example guys is valuable because the coach can always say, hey, be like Chris. That's always a good thing to have in your locker room. And you Friday Night Lights fans, it's like their version of the Preacher Man, right? I think that's actually a pretty good analogy. Credit to producer Chris coming with that one. I like it, though, quite a bit. I assume most of you here would have watched Friday Night Lights, or at least some parts of it. So assuming Braswell goes pro, which he does have the weird extra year of eligibility, we'll talk about that in a little bit with senior day. What round would he be drafted in? I think day 2 is kind of the upper echelon there. Maybe he slides a little bit, but I think there's enough we've seen this year to say at least day 2. What round do you think he goes in? Sound off in the comments section. Before we go, some senior day honorees. Now, I'll make note, 2 seniors not on this list, Trey Amos and Christian Story. Given Amos' eligibility, I think he'll be back next year. Christian Story's been kind of nicked up, makes me think he'll be back as well, or I don't think he transfers, but anyway. Everyone on this list except for Jalen Key, Will Reichard, and Darian Dalcourt do have an extra year of eligibility because of the weird COVID stuff. So Braswell, Burton, Dalcourt, Justin Aboijbe, Jalen Key, Tresman Marshall. Jace McClellan's the interesting one to me. Could he go back? Could if he wanted to. Seth McLaughlin, Malachi Moore, I think he's gone. Will Reichard, of course, is out of eligibility. Quandarius Robinson, Tim Smith, and Roydale Williams, too. I would bet, and you can say something I'm crazy, Chris, I think at least one of those backs comes back. I think one of, if not both, McClellan and Roydale come back for another year. Roydale might make the most sense given his limited touches so far, but Jay certainly could as well. And then it's running it back with the same backfield, just like it was this past season. If you have not already, please subscribe here on the Alabama Football Report. More free videos every single day when you guys sub. Hit that button right now, youtube.com/RollTideTV.